Welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Patty Arroyo. Thank you for joining us again tonight. We got a great show for you. It's the holiday season, and there's a lot of ups and downs that come with that. Our guest tonight, Dr. John Rapadas, so sort of help us, guide us through how to get through the holiday season intact, so when the new year comes around that we still all like each other. We're Something to Talk About. Come on back, we'll talk. Good evening. Welcome again to Something to Talk About. I hope you're enjoying your evening. I'm here with Dr. John Rapadas, and we've got food on the table. We've got what they're calling Kahlua Nachos Grande. I know, eat around the stuff. There's a lot here going. And there's like, at the end of the day, we have to do like a teeth check to make sure there's no peppers or anything inside. And then we also got the fruit. So we've got a gamut of things going. We are here to talk about, a lot of stuff. I mean, we've retained you a long time ago. It's exclusively ours.
Yeah,
we try to.
It's my pro bono.
It's your pro bono stuff. In addition to what do you have a private practice?
I do have a small practice of a GCIC. And it's by appointment only. People call if they need any help or referrals or evaluations. I'll be happy to do it depending on my schedule.
Yeah, and then but your other full-time job is?
I'm actually have contracts with a DYA, and I'm essentially the psychologist, the clinical director at DYA.
Okay.
Running all the clinical services there and referral services, consulting services, and then I do a lot of disability work with Social Security and DVR, and I used to do Head Start and.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's a lot. That's a lot of listening to a lot of people's problems.
Yeah, it gets kind of tiring, but for each person that's in front of me, they get my full 100% attention. Since the time you've been in practice, have you noticed an increase of numbers of people who come to seek your advice? I don't think there's any Chicken Little sky falling thing.
Yeah.
I think what's going on is there are more people seeking services because they're more aware of their needs, and they're more willing to speak up because of all the public ads and it's saying that if you're stressed, let people know, speak and talk, suicide hotlines and all those things. And but what's happening though, what I've noticed a trend on this island is that while there are a lot of people seeking help, the therapists that are here, they're super busy.
Yeah.
They're very busy, and I get a lot of calls from people. Like I've called 3 or 4 different people, and are you available? So I try and make myself available, but boy, it's really tough to get a good therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist now.
Well, is it like physical health, mental health? Is it like that? Is the increasing numbers of people that have some sort of ailment, do you liken that to somebody coming in and having an ailment like a sore throat?
I honestly, I'm very much into this. It's called psychoneuroimmunology kind of study. I remember going to graduate school, and that actually term just came out. It was in the early 90s. It's not that people didn't make the connection, the mind-body connection before, but it became more research studied, and they're finding the connection between the mental and physical health and the way that you're living, lifestyle or stress. It really literally impacts the body on a microscopic, like minute atomic level. That the stress that we put ourselves under, it actually changes our physical.
So, but does it have to be a mental disease, or if you are just symptoms, this like you said, stress or anxiety and that,
right?
Those are like little symptoms of things that can eventually become something?
Become something physical, like for example, so little things like stress and anxiety, stress at work. You're not diagnosable by any stretch. You're actually subclinical level of depression or anxiety. There's nothing that a psychiatrist, psychologist would say you have the disorder, the diagnosis. But with time, if you don't take care of the little things, little stressors here and there, it'll affect your health. I mean, literally.
Long term, are there bouts of these? Are there bouts that occur?
I think mental illness, like physical illness, there's 2 ways. One is we're just like a chronic disease, like say diabetes. If you're just kind of maintaining, at any point in time you could go down, get worse. But then also mental illness, like physical illness, can also be cyclical, because you could have like lupus or some type of disorder where you actually have several months where you're really good, and then you crash. It's an immunological disorder, and then you go up against. So same thing, like say bipolar for disorder. You have someone who is actually maintaining themselves pretty well with medication, with treatment, and then for some odd reason, or they decide to, well, let me just kind of, I don't have no money this time, maybe I can't pay my prescriptions, or they have a death in the family, they kind of let themselves go. And I often see where I would just get this frantic phone call, in the middle of the day or night saying, Doc, I'm not doing well right now. And I'm saying, hey, we were just doing good the last few weeks. He said, you even promised you weren't going to call me. Maybe we'll just check on you, but they find themselves crashing because they just kind of let themselves go. So like any physical disorder, mental disorder, you have kind of both chronic, and then you also have the kind of up and down nature of disease. Disease, remember, disease is dis-ease.
Right.
When you break up the word, and you're really not at ease. Like right now, both you and I are struggling with.
Yeah, we both have a cold, right?
We are in dis-ease,
right?
But we're trying to overcome it and get strong, and we need to do the little things that we need to do to get better. Drink a lot of fluids and rest.
Right. Yeah, all the stuff you do, the self-help stuff.
Which I do. Which I also give suggestions for people who have mental illness too. All those physical things you talk about, physical disease, it also helps with mental diseases.
Do you think that people don't go to I don't even know if it's cultural.
Yeah.
Do we tend, maybe on Guam, let's just break it down to island folks in our sort of way of social way? Do we tend to ignore?
It's still a stigma, and it's really interesting. And I'll say something again about the physical and the mental, how it's the same. I mean, we always make a joke about men, especially, they have something wrong with them physically, but they never go to the doctor. It's similar, right? People say, "Well, there's something wrong. They're depressed or anxious." I'll never go to the doctor or psychiatrist. What, they're crazy. So there's a little bit more of a mental stigma, obviously, mental illness, but it's still kind of the same thing. They just avoid getting help. It's a very strange phenomenon.
But medical.
I don't know if it's cultural.
Yeah.
I think we've evolved a little bit better. It's 2014 now, almost 2015. I think people are a little bit more open to saying
seeking
that,
help.
Yeah, and that you're crazy or you're cuckoo.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an admission that you're not all right in the head, which seems to suggest that one thing is representative of your entire mental health, which is not true, and it's not fair.
Well, it's not fair because those people that probably tease people know that they themselves have issues. Why would they? It's like the old bully.
Okay,
the old bully,
right?
The
old bully thing, yeah.
The bully thing where you have your
own
shortcomings,
insecurity issues, so you
why
have
would
to
you,
pound
why would
on
you knock
some
someone who's trying to get help? It's like, in fact, it's the people that get help are the smart ones, not the ones that don't get help, either physical or mental, end up having either premature death or illness, and they can't snap out of it.
Are you seeing these numbers get younger and younger? These patients, clients are younger and younger.
Okay, now, so I think this where maybe physical and mental might differ. Like for example, like for diabetes, what I heard on the radio the other day, I think it was on your station. I think they diagnosed a kid with type 2 diabetes at 8 years old. So what I've been seeing, I think mental illness is pretty much, in terms of the numbers, they're pretty much stable. Over the past 15 years, 20 years that I've been working, I've seen kind of the same. I don't see kids getting earlier into things and a lot of the disorders like say schizophrenia and depression, they all pretty much stay the same in terms of their incidences, their age of incidences. ADHD, none of that has changed much. But with other physical mental disorders, that's where they probably differ. But I think it's pretty stable.
It's pretty stable, but that includes even the numbers of people, of younger numbers of kids who are seeking help because they come from diseased homes.
Okay,
or the stresses of living in 2014.
Okay, so that's where you're right. I mean, I think what you were leading toward is that when you have a little bit more social turmoil, socioeconomic status, poverty. We always say that poverty really is the number one risk factor over anything else.
But there are privileged kids who still have to keep up with their lifestyle and are still feeling the stresses of maintaining that kind of.
But those privileged kids, especially with their parents, they do seek help. In just my experience,
they have the means.
They have the means. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the ones that don't have the means, the ones that, like I said, aren't necessarily ashamed to go to a therapist or even find someone.
Right.
Those numbers, you know, with the increasing social turmoil, you're getting a lot of disease. You know, this fighting thing in schools.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next. I'm glad that you brought it up.
You know,
I'll tell you what, I'm going to take a break.
Okay.
Real quickly. I'll take a quick break. Well, I want to talk to you about that.
Okay.
But there's also a lot happening at this time of year. A lot of people under a lot of stress. And it's brought on by what is usually a very joyous occasion.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of weird? It's a little contradictory, but we'll find out about what you think about, you know, the holidays and feeling a little bit heavy during the holiday. Oh, heavy. Not that heavy, but heavy during the holidays. We'll talk about that with Dr. John Rapadas is our guest on Something to Talk About. Doesn't this look delicious? Hey, you guys, have you tried this one? Try this one.
the pork.
Welcome back to Something to Talk About, and a Merry Christmas to you. We are with Dr. John Rapadas, psychologist extraordinaire. You know, some people don't know the difference between, well, a lot of people don't know the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. One prescribes medicine?
It's about $200,000 a year. I'm just kidding. That's my joke I always tell people.
Oh, you're so funny.
Well, actually, Guam is unique. There's a couple other states where psychologists do prescribe. I don't prescribe. There is a law that allows us to. Certain things you have to go through. I went through one part of it, haven't finished the second part. But yeah, initially though, psychiatrist usually is an MD, medical doctor, so kind of medical model first. And many psychiatrists actually do stick with the medical model where they see patients, you know, right after the other. Psychologists tend to, just the nature of the business, if you're doing evaluation or assessment, you're spending several hours. Yeah, so on one person, and you're not basically filling out.
But do you have to be versed in one or different age groups? Like, for example, because you're the staff psychologist up at DYA.
I was trained as a generalist, so you know, I always say I've seen people from 2 to 90. You know, age 2 to 90, even younger.
What kind of problems does a 90-year-old person have?
Well, mostly 90-year-olds I'm assessing for dementia.
Okay, all right.
And they're quite grouchy. It was hard to get through that one.
I'm familiar with that. 2-year-olds, I get. What is the youngest evaluation you've done?
Yeah, but I think 2, 1.5
2 years
to
old?
2. Yeah.
What was the impetus for an evaluation?
Actually, it was a sad thing because it was a tragedy that happened, and they'd asked me. This is the time I was working at the court. They had asked me to evaluate to see if there's any
long-lasting
trauma effect from and the kid was only like 1.5 to 2. It's very little you can do.
Can you tell that? Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, and what I just concluded was at this point it's too early to tell. And the kid actually wasn't different from before the tragedy and after the tragedy. Although the kid did witness
something that
yeah, very bad. But yeah, so you'd have to wait.
That, you know, there's a lot of that. A lot of kids are witnessing stuff that you and I, when we were growing up, probably never were completely insulated from.
I used to leave the kitchen when Mom and Dad were just talking loudly. You know, I hated that. And nowadays, kids see this.
I'm traumatized by my parents arguing. That's about the most of it. But kids nowadays are seeing stuff.
And they get desensitized, and it becomes part of the regular world. And when kids come to see me, especially at DY, and I ask them about abuse or fighting in the home, they almost look at me like, doesn't everybody do that?
You know, I heard that. You know, they had like a sort of round table or a hearing with professional athletes, in which one of the guys, I don't know if you heard that today.
I didn't hear about it.
One of the professional athletes said, it was kind of loosely based on the whole Ray Rice, Adrian Peterson thing, but he said, I grew up, African-American male, I grew up in a home where family violence was a part of the day. And I know people personally that have grown up in a home where family violence, I mean, to see their father beat on the mother was a natural course of the day. How they did not become desensitized, I don't know. But, you know, some do and some don't.
Well, I think on Guam, we've had over the years, and the theory for me of why we have so much violence, not so much violence, but we have a good hefty amount of violence in our local community, especially. And people always ask me, where do you think that comes from? You know, I always look contextually when I look back at you look back at World War II and then our grandmother. I remember my grandmother who was right into World War II, stressed out, and she was in her 20s trying to raise her family, protecting the children. I remember her at the rest of the time after me growing up. Grandma's a little bit not like typical grandmas on TV. She was a little bit kind of cold and a little bit distant, kind of mean. And I imagine adults who went through a trauma like 2.5 years of subjugation by Japanese, all the hidden PTSDs, kind of bore itself out to the offspring of the kids of the people who suffered.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and then this is all written and researched on it. It's called the transgenerational trauma. So that even though the kids didn't experience World War II, they experienced the beatings and the coldness and the PTSD symptoms that came out from the parents to them. And then in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, a lot of those kids got beaten. They became adults, and then they beat their kids. And then you plop on top of the Vietnam War for those young men that came back, and the PTSD that came out of their drugs, and the drug culture. So we have a long history, especially going back.
I'm so tired of
our
violent history. I mean, that's tiring.
Violent.
How does anybody survive that kind of? How do you survive when all of this horribleness
How
happens?
do they survive? I mean, honestly, what are a lot of our local folks, they're not making it. They're not making it. How do they survive? They just make sure they can't get a job. Their education, their parents don't have a high school degree, so they don't get one, and then that kind of passes on, and they really just kind of stereotypical. They just get all the entitlements, and they just live off
the entitlement. Okay, so let's talk about those. Let's talk about these school fights that are happening. Is some of this have a show-off factor to it? Are we feeding into that whole thing?
Okay, I actually just assessed 3 or 4 of them this morning, and also yesterday afternoon.
What, kids in the video?
Yeah, the ones who got arrested.
Oh, okay.
Because I see everyone that comes in.
Oh, okay. All right, I know.
And I was trying to get it. What's going on there?
Yeah.
You know, I was trying to see if there's a trend or something going on. It wasn't MMA, and people think they're just trying to fight. It was one said they were trying to defend their buddy, okay, who was being beaten. One said that he just had to. He was kind of fighting, but then it was kind of jokey joke, and then in the end they shook hands, kind of almost like a boxing ring. And then I said, why were people recording? He goes, I don't know, but that's why I got in trouble, because if no one was recording it, he wouldn't have gotten in trouble.
So
he wouldn't have gotten arrested.
That would have been like a schoolyard brawl that you would have had at St. Anthony campus.
Yeah, or at Academy.
That just happened to
get
filmed.
So a typical one where they at Baba and they fight.
Okay.
That still goes on.
Yeah.
And I asked all the ones that came in, because how serious were their injuries? They're like, I mean, they didn't go to the hospital. Anyone's face get broke. Well, at least the ones that came in, it wasn't like a big riot. It wasn't, in other words, the whole system wasn't breaking down and people were beating each other up right and left. It was.
I'm talking about the other infamous one where the guy's on top of the girl.
That one, I don't think we.
No, that hasn't
AG
been
hasn't done it.
Yeah,
but just the ones that are on. Okay, right now apparently there's some other videos that are floating around, and so the kids that are trickling in are some of the videos that I can identify.
Okay.
Who were caught fighting on video. And assault, they get charged with assault.
So do you think that then these kids will become the poster kids for the school video fighting?
I tell you what, a few of them, it's their first time ever in the court system.
Oh,
See, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, maybe if it were the kids that were seen before 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, I'd be like, why isn't anyone helping this kid? These are kids' first time. They're like, Doc, I'm never going to come back. I just hate it here. I don't want to be in jail. I'm like, well, why'd you fight? And they're like, kids fight. I'm not trying to minimize it, but I don't want to maximize it as well.
Where's the delicate balance? You know what I mean? It's also generational.
Yeah.
Like we said, our schoolyard brawls.
Yeah, and I guess everyone survived that.
Well, I used to get bullied by some pretty tough chicks over at GW. There's some and I'll name them too if you want.
I used to be scared.
My high school time.
Yeah.
The other and the last thing we're in the holiday season. Yeah. Here is a big deal for me. Can I tell you, like my big pet peeve, is the bribing of Santa Claus. That just drives me. How many times can you get a kid to sit still with dangling Santa Claus in front of their face for 25 days?
Seconds only, last seconds.
Yeah.
My kids, I tried to do it, but they got smart. They're like, I don't know. I mean, I'm on like 7 right now, and Santa.
What about, okay, but then,
sure.
well, that whole naughty and nice concept, what is, that's just ages old. There's nothing you can do about
Well,
something like that.
I have a
but-
feeling. I mean, just to make it funny, but I'd say in about 20 years, I just saw a recent commercial about I think it's some sporting goods thing. Santa was pictured as a healthy, muscular guy, because what's this thing against obesity and stuff? And I thought to myself, in about 20 years, Santa's gonna be muscular.
Santa's gonna be hot.
He's gonna be hot, and then there's gonna be
We're-
no more of this naughty and nice, because
Oh.
it's very misogynist sometimes, and it's also very ageist for little kids, and
Yeah.
you're fooled, and so I think a lot of times things will change the trend. But going back to the point,
Don't bribe your kids during holiday season.
it's probably not the best. You know, it only lasts.
It's like the one weapon that parents feel like they have. It's like,
It-
if I can get my kid for 3 weeks to act accordingly.
It didn't really work for me. I mean, I think it worked for a few moments or minutes, and then after a while, I'm feeling like, boy, this is not right. I can't use this. I
Is
can't
this
use
why you
money
be-
and presents to bribe my
So
children.
you never bribed your kids?
Oh, I did.
Oh, okay.
I said
But
it just
that-
didn't work.
Oh,
didn't work.
Oh, I
that
see.
long.
I thought you were talking about when you were bribed as
Yeah,
a kid.
because it's easier to bribe than to actually spend time with them and play with them and do things that are
Well,
worthwhile.
that's the easy way out.
Right.
That's the easy
That's
way
what
out.
people do.
All right.
But
well,
the holidays very stressful. I think people just lower your expectations. You don't have to do this. If you had a great holiday last year, you don't have to have the same exact thing. You can change things around. This Thanksgiving, the Rapadas family, we actually went to a restaurant
oh,
because people are off
Blasphemy.
island. Yeah, people are actually off island,
oh wow.
and so we said, well, we can't have it in a regular place.
Yeah.
So and it was not bad. It was just
No
it's all-
stress. No one's like
No one's-
slaving in the kitchen,
No
wondering why
baluta,
somebody
no
didn't
nothing
bring the salad
exactly.
dressing.
And it was like, why didn't you help clean up? That
Oh
type
yeah,
of
I
thing.
know the fights that happen in a Chamorro household over who did not return
Yeah.
the Tupperware lasts for about 12 months.
Oh, yeah, up
The
until the
people
next
that-
holiday
they don't
season.
forget that you didn't
That's
give
right.
back your Tupperware.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that the Rapadas family, because there's so many of you. Did you all get what you wanted when you were growing up? Was that all a big deal
Remember
for you?
growing up, we didn't have it much.
No, we didn't have anything.
All we
My mother had 5 kids.
Yeah. All
it's-
we had was a Sears catalog.
Yeah. Oh, see, that was your.
Okay, and mom
catalog.
and mom would look at us. Okay, we all have $5 for each kid, and we're like, no one had money to. Dad was a policeman, mom was a lab supervisor.
Yeah.
There's 7 kids. How
Yeah.
do you spread the budget around? You
Yeah.
know, so each one of us had $5, and we're all just looking at the catalog. Okay, $2.99, and I can get something. Mama, can I go to about $6, please?
Oh, wow.
That's how it was. I had a wagon once. That was the best toy I ever had. But nowadays, oh my God.
Yeah, I know the one.
You're so spoiled.
Yeah, is it the GoPro or is it the new? I don't know. How about get a job?
Oh, my daughter was saying, I had 10 classmates with iPhone 6s and 5. So they're going, oh,
Those are expensive. I don't know how
are
people
you
do that
kidding
and
me?
pay tuition.
But they're parents.
Okay, well, stop spoiling the kids. I
They're
think
easy to do though because they don't spend time, and it's easy to bribe them
I
with
see that.
stuff.
I'm so glad I didn't have money. Then I could just spend more time with my kids.
Yeah.
I don't know if they appreciate
I
it,
think
but
it's good to be poor.
yeah, I like poverty. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. We wish you a wonderful night. Have a good day. Bye. Have somebody